Okay, we're here at the Barclays Center for the Adam Kownacki versus Chris Arreola post fight. So what did you guys think? I think the first question is if you can say how you. I'm going to go from the main event and then work backwards through the fight. So, how did you pick? We made predictions beforehand. How did you guys pick the main event to go? If you can just recap that and then give your grade for how you thought the fight was.
Well, I originally thought the fight was going to be a KO 3 for Kownacki. That's obviously me just really underselling Arreola. Clearly, I think we all really undersold Arreola. We just thought he's going to go in there, collect his paycheck. Kownacki's going to just blow him out, which was clearly wrong. And, I think I would give the fight a B+. B+, why? Because it was an entertaining fight, action-packed. I think they mentioned
the record for the most power punch connects in heavyweight history.
Yeah.
Definitely volume.
Yeah. So, and it just felt like the whole fight, it was just waiting for who's gonna outwork the other. Is one of them gonna get tired? Is the fight just gonna end? There gonna be some sort of stoppage? And it got really, really, just really down the wire at the end to. Will we actually see a stoppage in the end, or is it just going to be a decision? And the decision Goossen and Arreola felt that it was a little far.
A little wide. I think they were disappointed.
But honestly, I think it was one of those fights where, from the beginning, if it wasn't a decision, and the style of the fight, I honestly felt that was what was going to happen. And so, the Sea of Red came out. Kownacki did what he had to do, and who knows what's going to come down at the end for him.
Sure.
Any other comments?
So, if you can just hold the mic there. Yeah. So, your take, your prediction, and your grade on the fight.
Yeah, my prediction was, I think, KO 8. I said down in the media room. Grade of the fight is a B as well. To give it an A, I think we would have had to have a knockdown, not necessarily a KO. Either way, the volume was crazy. It was like watching a featherweight or a much lighter weight fight. And agree. I just thought the accumulation of punches and damage would take Arreola down, but to his credit, he survived. So props to us old men hanging in there to the end.
Yeah. So I coming in, I think I didn't call that this would happen exactly. I mean, I definitely hedged, but I said it's possible Kownacki could just mow him down. Or it's really possible Arreola could hang in there. I mean, there were lots of ways coming in where they looked pretty similar on paper. I mean, they had identical height and reach, which is always interesting when it plays out that way because both fighters are kind of at exactly the right, range to be able to connect on each other. And if you look at Arreola's record, I mean, he has so many, knockouts than Kownacki has fights. And Kownacki has a few impressive wins. Also has sort of a marginal win against Charles Martin, where it was kind of a war like this to a lesser extent, but some nice blowout wins against guys like Spilka and Gerald Washington. So I was really interested coming in, and I would score it again a B, I think. I don't know. I think it was a little sloppier than what I like. I mean, when you look at those punch stats, and I saw people on Reddit talking about it. A lot of people loved the fight, thought it was a war. For me, it was still a little bit too sloppy. I mean, it's also, I think what you look for in any type of fight when you starts to be fight of the year and a really memorable fight is clear momentum swings. And this was funny. It almost had no momentum swing because it was the same thing the whole time.
Yeah. No highs, no lows.
Yeah.
So just a separate thing. I just want to show this to the camera. This was really fun. You saw the people with the Sea of Red in the crowd. There were a lot of people who had, Adam Kownacki shirts they had bought. This was also a Polish law firm was giving away T-shirts as well. They had some sort of T-shirt sponsorship. So that was very fun. So, the Polish crowd came out. They had a blast. Do you guys have any thoughts on the scoring? It ended up being scored pretty wide for Kownacki. 118 once, 117 twice. So basically 10-2 and then 9-3 twice. Any thoughts on how that worked out? Do you think there was an argument for it to be more competitive on the scorecards?
I mean, I was thinking about it throughout the fight, and I thought, the closest it would be in a realistic approach is 8-4.
Okay.
Just because as you're watching the fight, you would see Kownacki is landing not necessarily clear punches because none of it was clear, but at least it felt like more for 2 minutes out of the 3 minute round, and then Arreola would land really well for that solid minute or 45 seconds. But I just think the story of the fight was written, as Max Kellerman would like to say, the story of the fight was written as Kownacki's gonna go, he's gonna land all those punches, he's gonna land them over and over again, and Arreola was gonna get those his moments, but his moments just weren't enough in my eyes and the eyes of the judges, and with the optics being that his fan base is so strong, and every time he throws a punch, they're cheering. I felt there was so much for Arreola to just dig himself out of. So it just 8-4 to me felt right. And now, obviously, 9-3 and 10-2 also makes sense. But 8-4, I think, would have been my personal score.
I agree. Arreola, just the flashes were there. He would have burst, or he would maybe come out of the phone booth and land a couple combos. But it just wasn't enough and not consistent enough throughout the fight. Kownacki kept the pressure on, and then frankly just was in control of the fight the entire time. So while it was wide, and that I feel like that never feels good in any case, I think that is accurate. I don't have a problem with that.
Right. I'd say the same thing. I was scoring it for Reddit. I had it 9-3, Kownacki with Arreola winning the last 2 rounds. And I was commenting on this as I was going through the fight, but this is a classic example of like every round is competitive, but one guy seems to be edging the rounds. Yeah. And, it was sort of funny. I was on the ringside media area. There was a bunch of Polish media around me, and Dan Raphael was right behind me, and he kept sort of like hectoring the Polish media, being like, Ariel is in this. It looks like Ariel won that one on my... Like, he sort of kept making the argument this is closer than... and it was like... I think everyone got that it was a competitive fight. I think it was kind of unnecessary. But, yeah, I feel like this is a classic example of that, where it's like some people will look at this and say, oh, that, it should have been 7-5 or draw, each round was... But it's like, at the end of the day, you have to score the round, and it just seemed like Kownacki kept winning the rounds. So... Yeah, I guess that's ultimately uncontroversial that, he won a pretty wide decision on the scorecards in a competitive fight. Looked like Ariel's hand was hurt. How much do you think that factored in? How do you guys think a rematch would look potentially?
I think, the hand injury I noticed, I think midway through the fight, and immediately I was just like watching that hand. It was his left hand, I'm watching it, and he was just keeping it up there just to essentially just to dodge majority of the time and just to block. And whenever he did throw it, I noticed right afterwards he would clench both gloves together, as if he was like trying to just keep that feeling in there. So it felt as if he was slowing down a bit. Did it change the outcome of the fight? I honestly don't think so. And I think if we did see a rematch, it would be essentially the same thing. I just think that's the way they fight. It always ends up this way.
I agree. I have no interest in a rematch. It was a fun, stay busy fight for Kownacki. It kind of keeps him at that gatekeeper level, but also the Charles Martin fight did that as well. We've seen him in there versus people who have been at the world-class level. So we want to see, or I would want to see Kownacki probably take another step up, or somebody at a similar level who has been in there.
Well, so name names. Where would you want to see him?
Who do we want to see? Could we get?
Do you think he's a valid opponent?
I was
for
thinking
Wilder?
like Dillian White and whatnot, but then different.
Yeah,
so I'm coming up with roadblocks, but maybe like a Joseph Parker or somebody along those lines, just to kind of get him in the mix with some of the names that are involved with some of the top 3 or 4 heavyweights, to get some of those common opponents going. I would want to see something like that. And a question to you folks, like, how would you think he would do? How does this kind of an indictment on
that was going to be the next topic.
I'm a little bit concerned, I might say, but I'll let you guys speak.
Yeah, well, I'll answer the prior question first about a rematch potentially, and then seg into the answer, and then we can work back. I think a rematch would be really interesting, but I'll answer both questions at the same time. I think the next move, I think the Wilder fight's there. I could definitely see or the Andy Ruiz fight, depending on how things work out for Joshua. These are all PBC guys. I personally try to be realistic with this stuff. I know sometimes people like to complain about the fights that aren't made or whatever, the fights that should be made, but I generally look at what's available, and I think for Kownacki, I think he's probably done enough at this point to get a title shot. Lord knows they can put together highlight footage of the amount of power punches he landed in this fight, if you look at that level of excitement. I mean, another thing with Wilder, you always have to remember, he comes in around 215 or 220, Kownacki was 266 tonight. That's a huge size advantage. I'll always remember, I don't remember if you saw this specifically, what I saw, but actually I think it was on the broadcast, but Deontay Wilder after the Luis Ortiz fight was escorted around by Andrew Roberts, who's a PR guy for Swanson that we interact with, helped Ryan get his credential tonight.
Thank you.
Shout out. But always remember that. Wilder really got physically beaten up in that fight. Besides, the headline people think of is when he almost got stopped in that round by Ortiz, but he was just physically very hurt in that fight. Tyson Fury was not that type of opponent, even though he had a very big, weight advantage. But I don't know. I think that physicality, I think there is room for that to be an interesting fight with Wilder. We also still haven't seen Kownacki's chin dented. So, to me, it's sort of unstoppable will against immovable force, where you have, this tremendous physical volume punching guy. Just to say the Arreola thing first, I think Arreola had said coming into this he might retire, and I think he's kept himself in the mix. PBC has guys coming up. They have some connection to Joe Joyce, but also F.A. Ajagba. Andy Ruiz, if he, loses to Joshua, that's an all-Mexican showdown they could do potentially. I think Arreola stays in the mix, and Kownacki stays kind of the best of the rest outside of, who you think of being the really top guys at heavyweight. There's a separation there. So, I don't know if Kownacki needs to do another fight, and I don't think there really are that many other people. He's been sort of going on this tour of fighting the Wilder opponents, and, unless maybe Wilder knocks out Luis Ortiz, there could be a Luis Ortiz fight maybe eventually, but, I think he's reached the level. It's like the Wilder fight is there. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good answer. So you can say more about that, Ryan. You can talk about these topics.
See, you were talking about his next opponent, and I'm just trying to think of the timeline of the Ortiz-Wilder 2 fight. Because in my eyes, I think his next big step would be that Ortiz fight. Looking at, or even Brazil, he absolutely lit him up in one round. But when Brazil's medically cleared the fight again, maybe that's a fight that can happen too.
Well, how about when Kownacki's medically?
That's
I think
also
Kownacki's
true.
going to need a few months off here.
Yeah, that's especially, and he's just
the baby.
The baby's on the way too. He's probably gonna want to take some time off. But
I think his wife is gonna want him to take some time off.
Yeah, especially after that, I should definitely go get checked for concussion. I know they kept checking Arreola for one, but I'm surprised they never checked Kownacki. Did you guys see that? I know Arreola at least twice they checked ringside for concussion.
My answer on that is I didn't see it, and also Arreola seemed, to at least me at ringside, I don't know how it was for you guys from your vantage point, but he seemed hurt multiple times.
Where he would just go into
you'd see that, it's like when you see the punch connect and you see a little bit of his leg, when you see a little bit of the snap in his body.
And hands drop, too.
He seemed hurt and stung repeatedly throughout the fight, which is another reason why, like I said, the rounds sort of kept going in Kownacki's favor. Kownacki was getting hit, but, again, especially when you factor in the Arreola probable hand injury, that starts to seem, definitely there's an accumulation of punishment, but I didn't see Kownacki hurt in that way, as per you talking about them checking him out for concussion. I hope both guys go to the hospital after this. I really, we don't want any more, problems in the sport. Safety first, but anyway, continue.
No, I just think, because when we look at the top echelon of heavyweight, right, there's certain fights that obviously can't be made right now, and it's just, I honestly think a fight like an Ortiz I think would be a very dangerous fight for him, but also a very important fight. And are we gonna see Kownacki how will his chin hold up? How will he hold up when he's fighting a guy that's not going to be necessarily wanting to trade in the phone booth with him the whole time, but will be waiting on the back for just to counter him all day? Because Kownacki's defense doesn't really hold up for someone like that. Like,
Right.
will Ortiz be able just to simply just
Yeah, that would already be a very
diffuse the
interesting
Polish
fight.
bomb that comes in and just lights up his opponents the way he does, right? I'm curious to see that, and I don't know if the timeline works out, but that would definitely be a big fight. I would like to see Kownacki.
Yeah, I mean, do you have more thoughts on that topic, or either of you guys have thoughts on where Arreola goes from here? If Arreola should keep fighting, or this is a good note to go out on?
Yeah, I hope he hangs him up personally.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's a tough SOB. Not the person on here, but it's a tough SOB, and this would be a great send out. He has nothing to prove to anybody. He's had his shots, and I don't know, sustained damage, and to the earlier point of not wanting to see any more tragedies occur. That always worries me. Those sustained like beatings, but I know they were trading back and forth, but I feel like Arreola was getting the worst of them.
Yeah, for sure.
I get it. Yeah, so you also think maybe better for him to hang it up.
I honestly think he's been like, this was almost like his last rodeo. He gave everything. I think he left everything that he has left in the ring tonight. Like, and it showed just in the stats that they said.
You guys think he would maybe be depleted even if they did a rematch?
Yeah, and not only that, just anyone else, like Ruiz knocked out Anthony Joshua, and in the way he did it is what would happen, as you said, the Mexican showdown that they could set up if Ruiz lost the rematch to Joshua. But I just think the best thing for Arreola is just probably just hanging up. Like, I don't see it another fight really helping him in any way. Just retire with your health and your family, and you had a lot of great fights. This was a great fight to end off with, and I think that's it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think I would be, if there are any guys coming up, I mean, I think he's shown himself as a valid gatekeeper. But I definitely, I mean, you always want a fighter to retire earlier than later. It's like we've all seen fighters who have hung on for a few too many fights. Financially, I mean, that's the thing. I think there's still money for him to be made, so I think realistically he probably will hang on, but we'll see. And I think also, do you guys have any other I have one final comment on the fight, but do you guys have any final comments on the fight before we move to the undercard?
Nope.
I think
that's it.
one thing I think was kind of interesting was Joe Goosen came on as his trainer in this fight. And, Joe Goosen probably will always be most famous for the Corrales-Castillo fight. And I thought that was really interesting here because, that was about infighting. That was about smart infighting. And that's really what Joe Goosen is known for, is like sort of educated infighting, action fighters. And I think that actually did benefit Arreola here. He's late in his career. I'm not going to say he learned that much, but that pairing probably was beneficial in this fight, where it was a phone booth fight. They were exchanging for the whole fight. And, he, I think, was technically better, but couldn't match up physically with Kownacki. And I think those little bits where he was technically better, where when Kownacki was coming on, he could land a counterpunch, I think that kept him in the fight. So I think that was kind of an interesting wrinkle. And, if and when they do a rematch, which I think, it's there. I think that's a fight which draws money. If this fight did, around 9,000 people, which is a very good number, I think the rematch would be bigger. I think it's a no-brainer to do it as another Fox headliner, or like a co-main event, possibly for a Wilder pay-per-view or something. If they aren't ready to do the Wilder fight next, I think a rematch of this could go into that. But I know I'm in the minority, at least in this conversation, in terms of wanting to see Arreola go on. So, who knows? I think business-wise, there's a demand for him, but that doesn't mean it's the smartest thing for him and his family.
Yeah.
So we can move on to the next fight, I guess. The Marcus Browne. Yeah, Jean Pascal. I mean, so just to recap the result, weird fight. Marcus Browne seemed to win most of the minutes of the fight. I don't think it's controversial to say that, but Jean Pascal kept knocking him down, and then the fight ended weirdly on a headbutt. So first, if you guys can, again, to go through the same format, give your what your prediction was going in and your rough thoughts on the fight.
I honestly don't remember my prediction going in. Do you guys remember for me?
I think it was an early knockout for Browne.
Yes. Well, whatever it was, I know I definitely had Browne. I honestly didn't think Pascal would do as well. I mean, he didn't technically do well in my eyes. I saw definitely on boxing Twitter, they're trying to make it seem like it was a magnificent, career-defining performance, when I think it was a career-defining 30 seconds, where he just would like Browne gets caught trading hooks the first time, and I'm just sitting there. I'm like, okay, he's trading the hooks. He got caught. Okay, learn from it. And what happens? The exact same thing. A second time. What happens the third time? The exact same thing. And he's trying to rush instead of taking his A count, composing himself, getting up and continue with the fight. He just runs into the exact same thing. And me and Joey kept talking about it. We're like, this guy he needs to like take his time, because you could tell he gets up, his legs aren't there yet. He almost pulled his Zab Judah, I think, in the second knockdown, where he fell.
Was definitely badly hurt.
Yeah.
And the ref seemed to give him a little bit of extra time.
Yeah.
I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts on that aspect as well. Do you have anything to add there?
My prediction was, I think, like KO 6 or 5 or something like that.
But in Browne's favor.
And Browne. Yeah, sorry. Browne for KO 6. We've seen Browne fight a ton here in New York. So Browne, sometimes he gets sloppy, he gets wild. It seems at the Badu Jack fight, he's kind of turned a corner. He got patient. He'll take his time. Actually let things build. So I figured by the 6 he should have enough damage that where he could go ahead and get somebody out of there, the TKO or something. But that was not, the case tonight, and it was a crazy fight. He kind of got back to his we've seen him kind of stink it up here. Sometimes he got back to being sloppy and a little bit impulsive, and I don't know. I'm just in shock, getting texts from everybody in Staten, like, what's going on with this fight.
Oh, yeah. It was hilarious. A guy came down to press row who said he was at an event earlier in the evening. He just made it here for the main event. He's like, what happened to the Browne fight? And I'm like, God, where do I start? It's so crazy. My prediction coming in, this one I was definitely the most off of any of my predictions tonight. I thought it was going to be an ugly distance fight. As we mentioned, we saw Browne fight a very ugly fight last summer at the Nassau Coliseum, roughly a year ago. It was roughly a year ago to the week, on the the Berto Devin Alexander undercard. Very unmemorable. I think we've agreed it was the worst card we've gotten to cover. Still always happy to do it, but it was it was not the best fight. And so that was on our minds. Also on my mind was Pascal going the distance against Bivol. So I thought, if, in Browne's fight last summer, he was winning, got knocked down, and then stunk out the rest of the fight. This, with the Bivol fight, I thought, Pascal still has enough left to, stink out a distance fight against a young, hungry fighter. So what happened? Not what I was expecting. Browne was a lot more aggressive. He really came in determined, because just business-wise in the sport, most of the light heavyweights are at ESPN. He's got, this weird interim belt situation, but it's not a real title. He needed to look impressive tonight to move his career forward. And he really seemed to have the attitude that he was going to get a knockout, no matter what. He landed, highlight reel stuff. Clean power punches for 90% of the minutes of the fight. Body work, straight left. Really hard shots. There were lots of times where it looked like they might stop it in Pascal, where it's just a veteran taking too much punishment. But then, Pascal lands a heavy shot, knocks him down. He gets knocked down again, barely survives the round, gets knocked down later in the fight. So you have, just to get in, the scoring was so weird where through 7 scored rounds, it was 75-75 very clearly, where Browne had won, or am I getting that right, 75-75? Yeah, because Browne had won the rounds that he won very clearly, but he had gotten knocked down 3 times. So, you have that, crazy 5-point swing. So you have 75-75, and then you go into the headbutt round, super heavy headbutt.
Oh, yeah.
Face split open. They stop the fight immediately, and then you have to score that last round. So every single judge, and this is what the official scorecards reflect, the final scored round decides the outcome of the fight. Do you give it to Browne, and Browne wins the fight? Do you give it to Pascal, Pascal wins the fight? Or do you give it a draw round, and the fight's a draw? Which is crazy. Very uneventful round. All 3 scored it for Pascal. So Pascal, on 3 knockdowns, which were very heavy, all of them heavy knockdowns. These were not flash knockdowns, and a weird headbutt finish wins the fight. And it's like, this is another one where it's like if there's a rematch clause, I guess they do a rematch. It's probably a main event at that point because I think this is like a weird, interesting outcome. At the same time, it's like for Pascal, you would think he doesn't want anything to do with a rematch because I think. My take, at least, is that Browne would better be able to adjust and stay away from those hooks and practice that. I mean, he won most of the minutes of the fight. To me, that's a rematch that goes all in Browne's favor, but I don't know. So, any responses to any of that or thoughts on how a rematch might play out if they do a rematch?
Well, I think you said everything there is. He said. I think he's gonna go back. He's gonna watch the tape. He's gonna realize I won 90. I'm gonna go as far as say 98% of that fight. He won. Just those times where he got caught with those hooks and he
was also hurt when he got back up. So you can
let's move it back. That's a little bit
maybe
a
I'm
little bit grandiose with it.
But with the estimates.
It's like
but I just honestly felt that he was winning the fight and all those rounds every time he didn't get knocked down. And when he got knocked down, he got knocked down the first time, he didn't adjust. Knocked down the second time the exact same way, and it's just it was frustrating to watch. Like, it was exciting. Canadian guy, he shout out Canada at the end, public enemy #1. So it was exciting on that part, but just like I think the best thing for the light heavyweight division is the Browne to win and just see where that takes it, where that like proceeds the division, especially since we do have this unification fight happening soon. So just to see what happens after when they're forced to make that Browne fight, or like what would Browne do next? Now it's like, okay, well now he needs the rematch, right? Like
they're just the PBC doesn't have that many guys at 175. So there aren't many natural. I mean, that's the thing. It's very, God, it's so weird. I mean, he comes in. Browne has not really lit up the world with his career, but he was an Olympian. He was undefeated, had the win over Badu Jack, which is one of the best wins any of the current crop of guys has at 175. I mean, that's a really, really good win. Now his O is gone. He got kind of embarrassed by getting knocked down so many times. The fight ends on like you guys said, it's like, I know enough how this stuff goes. It's like, what people are going to remember are the knockdowns and not that he was winning most of the fight. And it's like, fair to Pascal, he got those shots in. I mean, it was almost like a weird, bizarre universe version of like the Thurman-Pacquiao fight where like Thurman, I mean, it's not the best comparison, but it's like Thurman landed a ton of power shots over the course of that fight. Probably won 4 or 5 rounds, but, Pacquiao knocked him down and hurt him in the 10th, and then it's a clear Pacquiao win, the veterans in both cases coming up with the punches they needed to make, to take the fight in their favor. So we've been hogging the airtime. You have any more thoughts on the fight, thoughts on the rematch, thoughts on where you're going to go from here?
It's just disappointing. I really like Browne, and we'll get to another fight possibly with another local kid taking an L this evening. But it's just disappointing. I do see a lot of talent there. I think he's been progressing. I've seen him get better.
He definitely has been. I agree. I mean, he seemed to really, especially with the win over Badu Jack, really come into his own.
Yeah, it was like a peak. Like he's up at the valley. So hopefully he hasn't crested that peak and is going back down. I feel in the fight he just got comfortable. Like even after the first one, he got out of the round, made it survive. He got comfortable. He's in control, landing shots, landing hard body shots, 1-2s, and then he just got too comfortable. Some of the hooks he was throwing, I felt were more kind of like pawing or slapping, and then he gets hit with a really hard one,
flush,
and he goes down, whereas he hit first. So he maybe needs to come down the pipe more often versus Pascal or something, but straight down the pipe. But I hope he can adjust and get back.
Yeah, I would love to see a rematch, even just as we're talking about it, because you don't know how that's going to go. Is Browne's confidence going to be shaking that he thought I was winning so much of the fight, but I got hit with shots I don't see coming? Is it going to be? Is that going to destroy his confidence, or is he going to watch the tape and realize the mistakes he was making and just adjust to it? And they throw a million left hooks at him in camp, and he's able to stay away from them. I think that's really interesting. And, again, I don't, especially if they have a rematch clause, I think Browne definitely takes it. If they don't have a rematch clause, Pascal can probably get a good fight at ESPN against one of those guys, so he probably stays away from Browne, I would think. So, who knows? Final thoughts on that? Or
I have one comment. and that was something I kind of brought up to Joey, and I keep forgetting after I say it once. And it's it's almost like boxing is poetic in that kind of way, where we have the headbutt in the Jack fight. Jack gets split open.
Right.
Blood everywhere. Right? Like that's like it's like almost right. And then next you know, his next fight, look, the table turned, and look what happened.
More gruesome scars. Yeah,
right? And it's just like
weird.
Yeah, and it's not like the people that
Time
were.
is a flat circle or something.
Yeah.
It's like,
basically, yeah. So it was just kind of not funny, but more ironic, just to see that how this time the cut is not in his favor. People wanted.
Well, it was Atlantis Moore said ironic. Not,
yeah.
But it's who would have seen that coming?
Yeah.
Final thoughts, or ready to move on and talk about the Curtis Stevens fight?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah.
Sure. So again, predictions going into that fight, and your thoughts on the fight. If you guys remembered how you predicted it.
We honestly just thought it was going to be a Stevens. I think I just said Stevens decision, like pretty basic
decision.
Yeah, it was a pretty basic just prediction, and well, obviously we were wrong. Actually, I'll let you have your own when you go into your prediction and stuff. But just shout out to the guy that was talking in the media room. He was trying to build up Stevens as 154. There's gonna be no problems, and clearly there was a problem.
Yeah, he's like, this is the weight class for him.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to gloat a little bit. You never know how this stuff is gonna play out. But that guy was wrong, and I was right.
You
can give your
you
pick,
nailed it. And honestly, just Stevens was in there, and he just didn't look. He just looked shaky, and when those punches were landed, and it's just like he looked like there was nothing he can do just to stop it. Like once he would get hit like that, he looked shaky on every big shot. And those shots that essentially stopped the fight, it was enough. At least in my eyes. Obviously, it could have probably gone a little longer, but when it comes to stoppages, people always have question marks everywhere. I heard some people saying that they thought
That's
maybe
interesting. I thought it was clear. I don't know.
Yeah.
Thoughts, comments, thoughts on the stoppage?
My prediction I think was Stevens either later. I think I had decision too because I wasn't sure. But prior, peeling the curtain back. Yeah, prior.
Yeah.
Old John will get to his prediction,
Sure.
but I disagreed with it wholeheartedly I was like, oh, okay, he's dropping weight. I agree with the other gentleman that this
I'll
is
just get into
great.
it
I think at this point
broken clocks right twice a day. I definitely didn't see the Pascal fight correctly. I think I had a pretty good read on the main event. I wasn't that surprised by that it played out, but I had an oddly specific take on this fight, and it's basically what played out, which was Stevens is old, he's been knocked out before, and he's dropping down in weight, which is never a good idea. I mean, I saw Stevens come up, like I saw his sixth fight or something at a Broadway boxing. I mean, they had this funny back in the day, right when he was coming up. It was him and Jadon Codrington, which is a name very few people probably remember or watching this. And they were called the Chin Checkers. It was promoted by Lou DiBella, and the idea was they'd fight guys and just get blowouts. Sort of like a bootleg version of what HBO did with Golovkin. Take power punches, put them in with guys, get knockouts, and it's a fun club show atmosphere. But he was fighting at 168, and he even fought at 175 at different points during his career. I checked BoxRec, and I'm pretty sure, if I'm remembering correctly, this was by far the lowest weight that Stevens has ever come in, and that just never seems to go well. That's always the thing of later in a fighter's career. Sometimes they'll try to move down a weight class to look for more financial opportunities. And the fight which was in my head, this is an odd pull, but it was in Chris Bird, longtime heavyweight. He was always small for heavyweight, and he moved down to 175 at the end of his career. And it was this thing of he was always the small, super technically talented heavyweight. If he goes down to light heavyweight, he'll be a pound for pounder. He's got all the talent in the world, but moved down to 175 on a Friday night fight card back in the day and couldn't take a punch. Fought a much lower level guy, and just every punch he got hit with put him down. It was really a sad fight, and I'm pretty positive that ended up being the final fight in his career. It was definitely his final fight at 175, and that was the fight that was in my head. Stevens can't make 150. He's going to deplete himself too much. His chin is already too depleted from heavy knockouts against Golovkin. The classic meme face, the crazy knockout against Lemieux as well, and yeah, I mean, that's what ended up happening. I mean, that was the only thing I could see when I saw this fight, and that's what happened. I thought it was fun, oddly. I'm sort of surprised by the takes. Yeah, most of what I saw online was just Stevens needs to, from the first round on, Stevens needs to retire. He can't take a punch anymore. But he was bull rushing. I thought it was fun. I enjoyed the I was, again, it was, to me, this is a weird, some weird outcomes tonight, but I thought, I wasn't sure this night was going to be on paper. We mentioned that very bad card last summer at the Barclays Center, but I'm extremely happy with how this played out, and I thought from that fight on, I was like, yeah, that was pretty fun. We got some knockdowns. Stevens seemed to hurt Omotoso in the third. I mean, he seemed to bet everything on trying to get a knockout win, ended up getting stopped himself, but I don't know what else he could do at a certain point. I mean, Omotoso's kind of a tricky guy. I don't think Stevens was necessarily going to outbox him, and especially once he started getting knocked down repeatedly. It's like, well, all or nothing, we're going for a knockout. So, any other thoughts? I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much more there is to say about that fight, but any more thoughts on that fight?
Not really a thought, just kind of, I don't know why I just came up with this right now on the spot, but like you were bringing up earlier in his career, this whole chin check.
Yeah, chin checkers,
And I guess it's just kind of the circle of boxing life. The chin checker starts getting chin checked later on.
Yeah, that's a very literal description, I think, of what was happening.
Yeah, so I mean, do you think there is, my only question I guess for you guys would be, do you think Stevens has a future left in boxing? Do you think, is there fights still out there for him, or do you think it's just, like, in comparison, we talked about Arreola hanging it up, and like, it seems like Arreola definitely has more left in him.
I think so. I mean, I don't want to sway you guys. I was outnumbered on
I agree
Arreola.
With you from a financial standpoint, Arreola has much more left. Stevens wouldn't have to borrow you guys' circle. He'd have to go back to the club level. So if he's fighting at King's Theater or whatnot, or Nassau, they pull him out to jump in there with somebody at 54. I think that.
I just think he's done.
I
don't know. I mean, that's the thing. This seemed like a last-ditch effort to try to have, like, I thought he was done years ago. He was kind of like, a weird, like, never was who became a has-been. I guess that's kind of a brutal thing to say, but, like, he lost coming up, and it seemed kind of like he was just sort of like a failed prospect. Like, he was fighting at 168, and the frame just couldn't, the frame was just too small. He's just too stocky, doesn't have the height and reach. Couldn't really compete at that level, was, lost to a very bad fighter, drops down to 160, kind of gets rejuvenated, gets some knockout wins, loses to Golovkin, but it was like everyone was so high on Golovkin at that point, it was kind of considered a forgivable loss. Lost to Lemieux, and oddly, it was this funny thing. I mean, the way I would interpret it, it's like HBO was so eager for Golovkin and to some extent Lemieux to be stars, they kind of propped up Stevens' they wanted Stevens to be better than he was because it helped their reputations. He got, in my opinion, a very unfair win against Toriano Johnson in a fight he was losing. Toriano Johnson lost by very quick stoppage in the 12th, which I thought was, very unfair to Toriano Johnson's career. And it's like, to me, he's just never been that good. Like, I honestly don't know if he's ever been better than top 30 in any division.
Wow.
He got, I don't think that's really even, if you kind of look at it, I think that's not really that much of a hot take if you actually look at, like, his record and the performances he's had against different levels of guys. So, I think this is finally it. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if there's more to say about that.
I think that's everything there is to say,
further thoughts on the night? Any, like, good pictures we can look forward to that you got? I mean, any that jumped out? I mean, there was a lot of action tonight. I don't know if you got any good action shots or anything else.
Action shots on the volume of the heavyweight fight. The Browne
so
fight,
many,
I
it was
have
hard to
ton
sort through,
of
I think you
action
said.
shots of Browne looking good.
But you're looking
and then
for
also
the
then him on the ground, within a second. It's like one frame he's landing and the next frame he's on his butt. So
it is that fight. It's such. You're talking about the Max Kellerman story of the fight. That's such like a weird. It's like what is the takeaway from that fight?
Yeah.
He was like doing so well, but then got caught, and it's like
it's like snap. Oh no, pan down. And all of a sudden he's on the ground. On the undercards, there were some fun fights.
Oh yeah,
Wilder's
we can talk
brother,
about that. Yeah, why don't you talk about that?
Wilder's brother,
Marcel. Shout out Marcellus.
Yeah,
fun
Marcellus.
Instagram follow. Yeah.
Marcellus. I feel like he got in a little bit of trouble.
He almost got
stopped.
I mean, again, he almost got stopped. There was half a round where it looked like he was out on his feet.
Yeah,
but
he was gonna get stopped on. Julian Sosa
won a 4-round decision.
Crew.
Yeah, Julian Sosa. You want to talk about that?
He took a hard
We'll talk about
L.
the history of Julian Sosa. We've seen him fight tons of times.
Yeah, a local kid was undefeated, or I think he had like a no contest or a draw.
Yeah, he had a draw
no
earlier in
losses,
his
we'll
career.
just say that.
Yeah.
No
But
losses.
some split decisions in majority. He
Yeah.
kind of seemed to have like stagnated at kind of like the prelim off TV level.
Yeah. So if you see like Sosa, maybe Hitchens, Colbert, or whatever, and the other ones
Yeah.
seem to be kind of taking off where Sosa's
Right.
a little bit stagnated.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, he took a loss tonight, so he might, have to regroup. And I don't want to bury anybody that takes a loss. Like I think that narrative needs to be.
It was a tough loss, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he really took a lot of punishment. It was really reaching the point where it's like, wow, this could be a career-ending amount of. They're really having to decide. Like, you have an undefeated prospect. Do you go with the knockout loss if you have to pull him out, or is he taking so much punishment that could be the end of the fight? I
Yeah,
mean,
and you got
I
the
think it was
family
you
in
who
the
said
corner.
something very poignant, which is like. To paraphrase, like you're deciding, because his dad is the trainer.
Yeah.
It's like deciding, like, do I want
Yeah.
to try to fight for the boxing career to continue, or I want to fight for my son's health?
Yeah, exactly. That's the one problem that I always have when it's like your family's in your corner, because it's at the end of the day you have to make the decision as a fighter and as your family, right? Like, yeah, you want your fighter as a fighter, you want them to keep going out there and keep giving their best, but as you have to realize at the end of the day, their health's number one priority, and parents, especially parents, you see it all the time in boxing. They're just blinded. They're blinded by the
I think
obvious.
that's really
sometimes.
a truism in boxing,
Yeah.
that the trainers who leave their fighters in the longest are frequently the fathers.
Yeah.
It's like counterintuitively maybe, or not, because it's also you have the dynamic, they're the fathers, but they've dedicated so much of their own lives into their children's career, so they don't want to see that go, and it's sad when you see that. But I think ultimately they stopped it without him taking really an amount of punishment which would endanger his health. But it was clear they needed to stop it. He was just taking so many flush punches. Any more thoughts? I'm trying to think. I mean, I feel like there really weren't any standout fighters on the prelims. This is one of the lighter
prelims. There was the one heavyweight Flash.
Oh yeah, but I mean that was a bad fighter getting knocked out, but it was just like a weird, it was like a 17-loss journeyman or something scored the knockout. But crazy knockout where Carlos Negron got half knocked out of the ring. Carlos Negron coming off a heavy knockout loss to Dominic Breazeale last December on the Charlo Brothers undercard here. So fun night overall. I'm pretty happy with how it worked out. I think we were both kind of thinking coming in like this is as kind of like a B- C+ card maybe, but
we got
overall
Ryan
I thought it was really fun. It was fun,
yeah.
Special visitor from Canada here. So
Yeah.
you have any special shout outs to the Sunday Puncher universe?
John Pascal did all the calling out for Canada today, but it was nice. It was nice having. It was nice being here. I was happy to have started a beer with you guys, and I'm happy you guys had me.
Shout out to Babs.
Oh yeah,
Babs
ducking
pulled
the
up.
post fight again.
Yeah. He's got an imaginary family birthday party he went to. So
Yeah, no. Babs has a lot going on. Yeah, no,
He's a busy
no fault
man.
to Babs. We'll get him on one of these videos sometimes.
Yeah.
He was in fact here tonight.
Yeah, he was.
he made an appearance.
Yeah. So I think that's it. I don't think much to say. Another fun night of boxing. Kind of a little bit of a light card on paper, but I think that the main event's delivered, and I think every Polish fan was happy here. And I think overall a success for Kownacki, the headliner. I think it's probably great TV, I want to say. I mean, I have no idea what the ratings are going to be, but just a quick bit of business. It's like you always see the television ratings will rise during a main event. So if you have an early knockout, that kind of cuts it off at the knees. This was sustained action for 12 rounds. Heavyweight action. I think the ratings are probably going to do good, and I think you're going to see a good peak number, especially because I think probably the ratings will really go up over the course of that main event. So
anticipation of the finish.
Yeah. I think we're cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Good night, guys.
All right.
Signing off.
Good evening.
Sunday Puncher
Sunday
crew.
Puncher Boxing.